Hello, my name is Lisa Capshaw Wingfield, and I'm a graduate student at Murray State University. I am in Dr. Brogan's Admin 630 graduate class. I did my major research project on the problem of boys not reading as much, and my research question was what steps can be taken and what changes can be made to get our high school boys to read. This is an especially important problem for me because I have 4 sons. All but one of them quit reading in middle school. I also am a 9th grade English teacher, and I see time and again that my boys are just not in my class, are just not used to reading. I wanted to look at this because it is a worldwide problem. It is something that is happening in all the 31 countries that I looked at studies from. It is not just a problem because they're not reading, but they're also not scoring as high. They seem to be linked. I wanted to see if this was true. Because I had this question, I decided I would do a descriptive quantitative study designed to describe the problem as evidenced in a local high school. I want to look at the problem, what steps can be taken, and what changes can be made to get high school males more interested in reading. The goal is to describe the opinions of males who like to read and the opinions of males who do not like to read. They will self-identify themselves as readers or non-readers. From this description, I'm hoping that interventions can be developed by educators that can get boys interested in reading again. The Program for International Student Assessment, PISA, takes a survey every 3 years of 15-year-olds, boys and girls. The survey results clearly show that boys score lower globally than girls in reading. This is very distressing data. In order to effect changes for the better in male adolescent reading comprehension, I wanted to find out what the problem was exactly. I wanted to review the literature and try to see if there were some interventions that could be addressed that could help with this problem. A study of the causes behind the lack of reading by high school males may help educators develop some interventions to encourage teenage males back to the joy of reading. This in turn will help with their reading levels and their comprehension scores. The participants of the study are no different than any other group of male students at the school. What steps can be taken and what changes that can be made to get our high school males more interested in reading is the research question. By studying the reasons some students like to read and the thoughts of the students who do not, it is hoped that by describing this in a study, by looking at the data, I will be able to figure out some steps that can be taken in my school, and hopefully other people can also do this study and figure out what they can do. Overview of the problem. Underachievement in reading by boys, a global problem. Lower motivation to read on the part of boys, and a widening of the gender gap in literacy with girls outperforming boys in testing. Possible reasons for the problem. Looking back in the last 10 years, my literature that I reviewed was from 2007 to 2017. A drop in time young adult males spent reading over the last 20 years. Gender beliefs toward reading that favor girls. Policies possibly that have been enacted to improve the educational outcome for girls that are inadvertently lowering the educational outcome for boys. Policies that have emphasized younger students, not continuing to emphasize reading with the older kids, and by older kids I mean kids in middle school and high school. Younger kids I am talking about primary and elementary school children. Possible steps to resolve the problem. Allowing students to read materials in which they are interested and having them available. Many of the experts said that boys don't read for the joy of reading the way girls do, that boys like to take from their reading things that are useful to them in their everyday lives. That's one take on it. Some say they just want to read possibly graphic novels, possibly informational reading, not necessarily fiction, but nonfiction. Another thing that is a possible step, working on suspension of gender beliefs that favor girls. Those have been backed up in the literature and in some of the studies. enacting policies to improve the literacy scores for boys. Even though it has been shown that boys have lower scores, there have not been policies in the United States that have specifically addressed that. The thought is that maybe No Child Left Behind Act would address that enough, but nothing individually like some other countries are doing. Renewing emphasis on reading for both genders in upper grades. Obviously, if you make everybody read, if you don't just work on the boys reading, but you make everybody read, boys will read more. It has been found that the only way, or the major way to get better in reading is actually to practice reading. Participants. In this study, the participants were from Mayfield High School, which is a high school of about 500 students in southwestern Kentucky. It is an inner city school. It is broken down racially. The three major groups it's 35% Hispanic, 25% African American or Somali nationals, and 45% Caucasian. The students will be representative of all of the major groups of students in this study. The school is 75% free and reduced lunch, so it is low socioeconomically. Since the researcher teaches only freshmen to ensure that there's no pressure placed on a student by having them take part in the study while they're in her class, the study was only from junior and senior boys. So they'll be 16 to 19 years old. That will give you a choice out of about 125 students for the survey. They'll be chosen on willingness to take the survey and upon self-identification of themselves as those who enjoy reading and those who do not. The instruments involved in this descriptive study are two separate paper-based surveys. The questions on the surveys are based on the literature reviews. These are non-cognitive measures. Survey A, which is entitled Survey of Male Recreational Readers at Mayfield High School, will be administered to 10 junior or senior males who self-identify as enjoying reading for pleasure. Survey B is entitled Survey of Males at Mayfield High School who do not enjoy reading, and will be administered to 20 junior or senior males who self-identify as people who do not enjoy reading. The students are picked with three stipulations. 1, they must be male, of course. 2, they are juniors or seniors. And 3, 10 must identify themselves as readers, and 20 must identify themselves as students who do not read. The limitations, as in any study, there are limitations. They are of the same gender, age, race, and socioeconomic standing as the general population of the school. The participants in the study are. It's the researcher's determination that representative sampling was used so that the chance of generalizability within the school population is high. The intent that representative sampling was used addresses the population external validity. Now, this is for this school. It might not represent or generalize to another school's population, but this specific school's population it did. As far as the ecological external validity of the study is concerned, the researcher was studying and describing the answers of students in one particular school. There is no research to say the description of these students' answers will be the same as other schools. The responses may be quite different in a suburban school. This was an inner city school that was studied. Limitations concerning methodology are possible. The questions asked were not all-encompassing and were not all open-ended. Participants were free to answer in any way they wished. Did some students answer falsely or in a way they felt the researcher wanted them to answer? Possibly. The researcher had no control over the possibility of inaccurate answers. Future research. Because the problem of boys' trailing scores in reading comprehension is worldwide, this issue is an all-important one. As the literature review section of the research shows, many groups are aware of the problem and have begun to study it to look for interventions that might help get adolescent males reading again. Many opinions are put forth in the literature. Parkhurst, 2012, ties the less amount of time boys spend reading compared to girls to the lower scores and lower reading levels. So he thinks that he shows in his study there's a definite tie between the actual reading and how well you do. Boltz, 2007, suggests different motivations for boys to read, suggesting they should be allowed to read what is important to them. Logan and Johnston, 2019, concur with Boltz in looking at gender motivation as possible factors in the gender literacy gap. They argue that boys don't necessarily think just because they're assigned to read, they should have to read it. They want to read what they are interested in. Bozark 2011 argues for student choice in reading as well. Kerneza and Kosir 2016 also believe in choice and offer the solution of allowing students to read graphic novels that their studies showed boys to enjoy. Brazo, Sulkunen, Shield, Garba, Panadian, and Valton 2014 encourage the passing of government policies to deal with gender-based reading achievement gap. They argued in their study that the United States has not passed any policies just dealing with this gender-based problem. The studies by Reardon, Valentino, and Shores, Kerneza and Kosir, and Murga was 2017, all offer as a solution that more emphasis be placed on reading for both genders. Focusing on, and the quote that was in Kerneza and Kosir was, focusing on a general increase in reading capabilities would also improve the reading results of boys. And it seems to be a valid point. So the recommendation of this study is that the problem of boys not reading as much as girls and the decline in reading levels in boys will be studied and addressed. More studies are needed and attempts at intervention are warranted. Educators should ask the following question: what steps can be taken and what changes can be made to get our high school males more interested in reading? When answers to that question are found, interventions must be made. Action research studies in individual schools are recommended to study this problem. Half of our population cannot be allowed to fall behind in the all-important area of literacy. The reference section includes the picture at the beginning of the PowerPoint was in the Linda Jacobson article, Why Boys Don't Read, and it was retrieved from the source. It was an online image, and then there was also one other image, and it was Royalty Book Story, Shutterstock.com, and that was on the first slide as well. That was retrieved online. This is the poster that went with the research, and it has each step. It has the abstract, the introduction, the research question, the overview of the problem, the possible reasons for the problem, the possible steps to resolve the problem, who the participants were, what measures were taken, the limitations, future research needed and related to the literature review section of the report, and then the references. Thank you very much for listening to this report.